So hello guys, what's up and welcome back to my YouTube channel. It's me, your girl Barrister Neze, and this is Nezeville. Enjoyment go kill you is a normal slang in Nigeria, never meant literally. It is usually expressed with jests to somebody who loves to live the good life, one who fancies the fun side of life, one who spares no expense at all to entertain oneself. Today's story is a sad story of greed, lust, and a fatal conspiracy. It is a story of a quest for quick wealth. It is a story depicting a literal interpretation, a literal display of enjoyment killing somebody. Joseph Joy Adama, a 22-year-old lady from Benue State, Middle Belt of Nigeria, was an ND2 student of Kwara State Polytechnic. She met Mr. Adeniyi Ojo when she applied for a job at his clubhouse there in Kwara State. Mr. Adeniyi was a married man with children. He was the son of prominent chieftain Chief Emmanuel Ojo, and he owned and ran something like a bar, a sit-out stroke, a clubhouse in Kwara State. When Joy submitted her resume applying to work at Mr. Adeniyi's clubhouse, he took her phone number from her resume and began calling her, began making moves at her, passes on her. Now I'm going to narrate this story as narrated by Joy Adama herself.
So on the first day that I submitted my CV to his hotel for the job, he copied my number off my CV and he called me and he told me that he wanted to have he wanted a relationship with me.
Well, eventually she was called for the job, and even when she was an employee under Mr. Adeniyi, he kept on making sexual advances at her, waylaying her at every corner and at every given opportunity. These sexual advances continued throughout her stay as an employee under Mr. Adeniyi. She said that she did not rebuff his advances in a discourteous manner, owing to the fact that he was her boss. She said that she gently turned him down. 3 months after working under Mr. Adeniyi, the government shut down his clubhouse and members of his staff had to find their own way. But that did not stop Mr. Adeniyi from his continued pressure to Joy for sex. He kept in touch with her, flirting, chatting, sexting, and telling her that he wanted her in his bed. Adama was nonetheless upset. She couldn't understand why, despite all these moves and advances continuously made on her by Mr. Adeniyi, whenever she presents a financial challenge to him seeking his assistance, he turns cold on her and crawls back into his shell like a snail. She recalled this particular incident when she had challenges meeting her rent obligation, and then she reached out to Mr. Adeniyi. Just in his usual fashion, he ghosted her, and when he was sure that the need was met and she wouldn't be needing his assistance anymore, he resurfaced.
Anytime I tried to ask him for anything, there was even a time I asked him to help me when I had rent issues. He just ghosted me, and then later, after a while that he knew that everything was already calm and I didn't need the help anymore, he came back and started texting me again.
So Joy Adama told her friend at school, 24-year-old Vandora Davis Oreoluwa Favor. She told her what was going on, telling her of this particular guy who she had worked for in the past, who had the hots for her. How this guy has been asking her for sex, and despite he had money, he was so stingy. He didn't want to spend his money on her. And so they came up with a plan.
I don't want to have any sexual relations with him at all. But at that time, I was also in need of some money for some personal stuff that I wanted to sort. So that was the idea of stealing cash from him.
So Joy Adama reverted to Mr. Adeniyi. Oh, his heart must have leaped with joy and his groin swelled with expectation when she revealed to him that she had finally accepted to have sex with him. She sure exceeded Mr. Adeniyi's expectation when she proposed an even juicier offer. She told him that she will be coming with a friend. Joya Dama proposed to Mr. Adeniyi for them to have a threesome with a sprinkle of BDSM sex. Now, in the interest of those who do not know what BDSM is is an acronym for bondage and discipline, domination and submission, sadism and masochism. It is a variety of erotic and sexual practices involving the use of physical restraint, relinquishing control, and sometimes the infliction of pain or injury. Mr. Adeniyi's mouth must have watered at the thought of it.
The idea was that, like, if he agrees to do BDSM with us, BDSM is like the kind of sex where you tie the person's hands and legs. So while his hands and legs are tied, we can take cash or whatever valuable we can find.
So fast forward to the D-Day. Joya Dama and her friend Vandora arrived at the agreed spots, and they met with Mr. Adeniyi, ready, willing and waiting. According to Joya Dama, her proposal was that they drive to a secluded area and do it in the car. You see, Mr. Adeniyi may have had his head in the clouds, fantasizing over the prospects of having two young ladies in his bed. But Joy and Vandora were on an entirely different mission. Their suggestion for car sex was very strategic. Joy explained that it was common knowledge that men kept money in their car. Maybe she even got the information during the course of her working with Mr. Adeniyi. Maybe she knew that Mr. Adeniyi usually kept huge sums of money in his car. So their target was to have Mr. Adeniyi tied and bound under the pretext of BDSM and then rob him of his phones, his money, and his valuables. It must have been a spoiler for them when Mr. Adeniyi suddenly changed plans and took them to a hotel instead. Joy noted that immediately they arrived, his interest instantaneously changed from her to her friend Vandora, and he started telling them how he cannot wait to devour Vandora and how he can't wait to deal with them in bed. If only he knew that they had a different agenda.
He also liked my friend that day. He was telling my friend that he likes her and he wants to sleep with her and everything. Basically that day he was proposing that he wanted to have sex with the both of us. He was even telling us already from the garden about how he was going to deal with us and everything when we get inside. Although we were not bothered because we knew we were not planning to have sex with him and we just wanted to take his cash and leave.
And so he led them into the hotel and into a hotel room. And as soon as they got into the room, Joy went into the bathroom and she was closely followed by Vandora. They began discussing Mr. Adeniyi's sudden change of plans and if they would be able to actualize their plans now that they are in a hotel room instead of the car. Well, they assured themselves that they sure will, and so they re-strategized. Immediately Vandora got out of the bathroom, Mr. Adeniyi swapped on her and began caressing her and fondling her. He grabbed her up, placed her on the table and stripped himself stark naked. Oh, he was ready for business.
And because he already had eyes and attention for my friend before, he started touching her. Immediately we came out and he carried her and placed her on the table. He removed his shirt, he got naked.
But Joy and Vandora were not in a hurry. They led him to the bed and then tied his hands, tied his legs. For Mr. Adeniyi, his sexual fantasies were about to come true. He was ecstatic.
He allowed my friend tie his hand and tie his leg. He was even the one that raised up his leg for her to tie in.
After tying Mr. Adeniyi up, they began stuffing pieces of clothes into his mouth. They tried convincing him that the pleasure was going to be mind-boggling and they didn't want him to mourn so loudly. But Mr. Adeniyi registered his displeasure that he didn't want the clothes in his mouth. The truth was that they needed to keep him from shouting when they begin their action. Mr. Adeniyi insisted that he didn't want his mouth bound, and there they met another roadblock.
My friend already tied his leg and his hand, so my own turn was to try to put the handkerchief in his mouth so that small rope I can use it to close it, so that in case if he wants to shout, he won't be able to shout. He removed it and he told me that he did not want it. Then me too, I now took the clothes and I put it in my mouth and I told him that it's because we don't want him to moan too loud, that's why. But he refused.
But still, Vandora and Joy were resolute, 100% resolute to carry out their plans to the letter. They came fully prepared. At this point, Vandora reached out to her purse and brought out some drugs, Grofenol, a very powerful sedative that acts as a central nervous system depressant. They tried pouring it into Mr. Adeniyi's mouth, forcing it into his mouth, but he quickly tilted his head and sealed his lips, and so the drugs spilled. Joy admitted that they needed the effect of the drugs to get him all weak, woozy and sleepy, and they will be availed the opportunity to rob him.
We already had Refno in our bag that we were supposed to give to him so that he will sleep after, so in case, so that we'll be able to leave. So my friend poured it in her hand, and when she tried to pour it into his mouth, he turned his face away and it didn't enter his mouth. He said he didn't need it.
And so they tried convincing him that he needed to take the drug so he can, be in the mood and enjoy the act optimally. But Mr. Adeniyi refused. And it seemed at this point, he began getting suspicious. He began trying to protest, trying to free himself, trying to cry for help. At this point, Joy and Vandora pulled out a knife, and according to Joy herself, they began poking him with the knife, threatening him that he should better cooperate or they were going to hurt him. It was there and then that it dawned on Mr. Adeniyi the mess, the absolute mess that he has put himself in. Mr. Adeniyi did not make it out of that hotel room alive. He did not live to narrate his own part of the story. He was asphyxiated to death by Joy and Vandora, leaving a wife widowed and his children fatherless. Despite Joy narrated that they did not mean to kill him, they only wanted to rob him, and that the pillow they placed over his face was only done to make sure he's quiet and stop his screams from getting heard. But many people beg to differ. They believe that Joy and Vandora robbed him and intentionally killed him to keep him from coming for them or seeking justice and bringing them to book. But whatever it was, the bottom line still remains that he was murdered by these two young ladies, Joy and Vandora. After killing Mr. Adeniyi, Joy and Vandora carted away with his money, his phones and all other valuables. The police disclosed that they had continued trying to hack into his banking applications on his phone to steal away and clear off all the remaining money in his account. They were tracked down and apprehended all the way at Mowe in Ogun State. They were living their lives as though they did not just kill a man, a husband, and a father. This duo have now been charged to court for the offenses of murder and armed robbery, both offenses attracting the death penalty. And that brings us to legally speaking. Even if their lawyers try to argue a case of lack of intent to exculpate them from the murder charge, okay, it was manslaughter. They didn't mean to kill him. They only wanted to keep quiet, this and that. Even if that is argued in courts by the defense attorney, what about the offense of armed robbery? The offense of robbing somebody, stealing from somebody with a weapon, armed. That is also a capital offense, and that also attracts the death penalty. Hence, it might be very unlikely that they will be able to wriggle themselves away from these two very serious charges. The judge hearing their case have ruled that they be detained in prison custody for the whole time of their trial. And here we sit asking ourselves, why? A few pieces of clothes here and there, slave for the gram, some human hair. Why? And now they have taken a life and ruined theirs, bringing irreparable grief to this man's family. Just imagine the wife at home. Do you know how traumatic it is to know that your husband, your king, your Odogwu, the man of the house, had his life snuffed out like a chicken by 2 little rats? Do you understand the long-term impact it would have on his children? That they would forever go to the internet and read how their father was killed in the course of BDSM and threesomes with little things. May God give them the fortitude to bear both the loss and the shame. So guys, yes, we have come to the end of today's video. If you're new here, you're watching me for the first time, or if you've been watching without subscribing, don't forget to hit the subscribe button, give this video a thumbs up, drop all your comments down in the comment section. What do you think about this case? Drop it, share your thoughts down in the comment section, turn on your bell notifications and stay glued because we have so much more coming your way. Don't forget also to follow me on all social media platforms. We're available on Facebook, Instagram, TikTok and Twitter at Nezeville. Thank you so much guys for watching. I hope we have been able to pick 1 or 2 lessons from this unfortunate true life story. It's me, your girl barrister Neze, and this is Nezeville. I'll see you guys in my next one. For now, bye.